Hey, look, so welcome to CHS Leeds 2025. Thanks for being so prompt and on time for this opening session, which I'm going to explain just a little bit about in a second. My name's Al Turner, so I'm emceeing today, but I've also had the pleasure, honour of curating the day as well. It's just by a show of hands, no, actually, by a show of round of applause, so everyone can hear us, can you clap if you've already been to CHS or CHS Birmingham? Well done. I yearn the applause. I yearn the applause. Okay, so quite a lot of you. So you might already be really bored of my voice already. So sorry about that in advance. But there will be lots of speakers as well throughout the day. Before I carry on, look, none of this is possible without the kind support of our sponsors. So it's the beginning of the day. Please do make sure you go and check out Lighthouse, who are just such a joy to work with. You know, when everyone's always sort of blames the AV people for absolutely everything, they're just such nice people to work with. So do go and check them out. And also UTAC, who have been really supportive as well. We should also give a big shout out to Conference Leeds, who have been a massive partner for what we're trying to do here in CHS Leeds as well. So thank all of those guys as well. So we're going to talk about welfare, and you will hopefully have had a look at the schedule that we've put together. But one of the things we wanted to do is try and set some context in this opening session. I have two things to start to say about the session today. I'm hoping that you can just come in and come out of each session. Obviously, you've got work to do as well as the educational side of things. But we're hoping you can come in and come out. This is kind of like your aperitif, your amuse-bouche, just to kind of explain what we're trying to do. Throughout the day, we're going to set up lots of different content streams that are going to kind of give you more problems. At the end of the day, we move towards solutions. So if you can, do come to the end of the day. It might be quite a depressing day for you all, right? So problems during the day. At the end, we start moving towards solutions as well. However, before we start, I wanted to introduce Emma King, who's the founder and CEO of CHS Birmingham, Leeds, and all associated events, because we wanted to sort of set up what this is all about today. So actually, just to keep the applause thing going, can we have a round of applause for Emma, please? Hi, Emma.
Hello. I was just thinking about the end of the day. It's like we have wine also at the end of the day, so have the problems, but there's always wine at the end of the day. So
that's right. Let's forget them on the way home. So let's reel back first of all, so Emma. So can you just give me your voice, both as an event organizer and as the organizer of CHS Leeds and all associated events, your view on education? How do you go about it?
Yeah, because obviously there's lots of events, our industry events, and we have speakers, and there's a kind of an educational theme. And for me, like my whole mantra, I guess, in life is learn more, share more. You can't tell me something and me not share it in terms of like knowledge and skills and what have you. And for all of the CHS events, it's been more about who we are as event organisers. So it's not, we never go down that route of like the skills, because I think you already are skilled, you're here. There's always more to learn on the skills, but we're all about kind of who do we need to be and what do we need to know. And like we were saying earlier, there's been so much thrown at event organisers in the last 5 years. In fact, we were talking about today, weren't we, as well? I don't know if probably remember that, but today is the day 5 years ago that the law was passed for lockdown. So we went into unofficial lockdown 2 days ago and official lockdown tomorrow, but the law was passed today. And if you were in the industry 5 years ago, there's still a lot of trauma around that. And I still have it. Like, you know, there's no getting away from that. So it's more about how do we prepare ourselves to be event organisers when the world, the government is throwing so much at us. Like, you know, who do we need to be?
Yeah, and that's sort of reflected, this idea, we called it sort of like a collective industry-wide PTSD sort of movement, which is not to put too harsh a sign on it. I think you believe it as well. I believe that we are in that midst. But everything from the design of the show to what lands on the stage as well has kind of helped govern that as well. That's something culturally you're kind of firing into.
Yeah, I mean, you've said it beautifully actually a couple of years ago, in that I've always kind of believed at CHS, like if you're here, there's a feel to our show, and I can't say, oh, we do this specifically and you feel a certain way, but we have got that DNA or that identity. And you said that all the main shows, they have their theme around like either sustainability or kind of being like, professional qualifications or what have you. Whereas for me, it's all about like we care about the people, like who we are as people and how do we show up as event organisers and how do we share knowledge and support it. We've just had a conversation about, future events coming up. It's like, how do we help each other? Like, we're all in this together, and it's, and today's going to be very interesting, I think, because you've pulled together, a collection of speakers and what have you. So what I do is I kind of go, this is what I'm feeling, this is the theme, and then you interpret it and come up with a great, you create the program and the speakers.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess just to follow on that theme, I mean, I think one of the things that we've always sort of, I always quite like us because we acknowledge that there's other shows out there, whereas some other shows don't acknowledge that there's other shows out there. And I do think there's some brilliant content out there. I really do. I think if you go to like the meeting show, I don't know whether you guys go to Confex and places like that, there's some really good content out there. And I guess what we've always sort of said, if you want to learn about sustainability, there's some really good stuff out there. You want to go to D&I, there's some really good stuff out there. If you want a program that gives a shit about you, that's our bit. We take care of that sort of bit. I guess moving on to that, one of the things that we've been talking about, and I just want to give you the genesis of where this welfare thing comes from, is we saw a load of converging themes start to emerge. And it was while we were putting together the theme for Birmingham, but we were a bit too scared of it. Martin's Law specifically was one that's coming in. There's going to be a really interesting session come along, which I hope you can come along to. Started looking about safety. At the same time, this idea of sort of industry-wide PTSD, welfare started to re-emerge. I don't know whether everyone remembers. I think it's sort of like, just before the pandemic, welfare and well-being was a very, very big trend. It stayed around, but it did sort of like start dropping if you looked at sustainability rises and DE&I and things like that, some of these big macro trends. But the re-emergence of well-being has certainly come in there as well. And then Martin Law sort of said security, and so we started sort of developing this idea that we needed to look at care as a cross-sector thing, both the care for ourselves, but actually for our delegates as well. And we've always been very good at caring for you lot, but what we want to do is sort of extend that to caring for your delegates as well. And kind of the two are intrinsically linked. And that's where we started looking at welfare. So we started to build that program around there. And Starley, I mean, I've got to say that we started scaring ourselves, but what did you think when you started seeing this stuff drop onto your inbox?
Yeah, I was like, oh, interesting where we're going with this, Al. But it's we have to have these conversations around Martin's Law about, and we've got great sessions coming up. There's Sam and Callie speaking, and you will hear today perhaps some contentious things. Like, and I'm one of you today. I'm going to sit and listen in because I've got to do the roundup at the end of the day with you. But it's like I'm expecting today to hear some things that I don't want to hear, and to feel like that shift in your stomach where you go, oh, I don't if I agree with that. But it's like we don't want to shy away from those conversations. We have to have them, and as much as we don't. And I'm obviously a business owner as well as an event organizer, and all these things that are coming in. It's a burden. But also it's for the better, for good. So it's kind of how do you balance things that you believe in, that you want to look after people and you want to care for people and you want security and safety to be top of your agenda. But when you bring laws in against that, like to support that, then you have a responsibility. And it's how do you balance that? How do you balance that desire to look after people and desire to care with a legal element of it? So yeah, I'm really interested today just to hear some of the speakers, because I think I'm going to get a little bit uncomfortable, but that's how we learn.
And I do think, and I don't know whether you guys are starting to feel this as well, is I do think 2025 is the year of the law. So I think we've been talking about well-being for a long time. And this year, there's the Workers Protectors Act that's coming in. So Lizzie's going to be talking about that. So what we've talked about is about to become legislative. We've been talking about sustainability for the best part of 80 years. Okay, so there's new acts coming in this year, European-wide, UK-wide, often globally as well. Okay, so now it's law. It's not a nice thing to do anymore. It's legal. You're legally bound in it. So there's this coming home to roost. And I've always sort of said, so this isn't an I told you so moment, but this is definitely like if you don't regulate your own industry, someone will come and regulate it for you. And this is where we're starting to get regulated as well. So I do think that sort of uncomfortable thing's going to land. So we've always sort of said with CHS, we will look at absolutely everything through the prism of our own sort of personality, which is care and what does it mean for you guys. But I think this idea of being uncomfortable is going to sort of land when Lizzie and other people start telling you, actually, this isn't a choice anymore. This is happening whether you like it or not. And I guess, I don't know, how does that sort of make you feel for these guys?
Well, do you know what? It's not even just like the regulation side of it. It's like I'm going to hear some different perspectives today. I know because I've been involved to a degree in the speakers and what have you. I think you learn the most when it does make you feel uncomfortable and what have you. And it was interesting, you like the word well-being, because that's the route we're going down. But it feels like it's more than that now. Well-being is like that was so last year because it's beyond well-being. It's beyond having safe spaces and what have you. I've had conversations the last couple of days with people saying our events need to change, and it is all about inclusion. But again, just saying it isn't enough. It's like thinking it through the lens of people who come to our events. Yeah. And I think just as human beings, not even event organisers, like there's a lot of uncaring things happening in the world right now. There's a lot of people, in our industry even, that they don't personify the kind of values that I do and what have you. So it's how do we communicate that? How do we do these things? And that's what I wanted today to be about. It's like, okay, let's go there. Let's have the conversation.
So we were developing the program, and again, there's a couple of really good set pieces in there. One is about protecting delegates a bit later on. So we've got Sean and Katie, and we're going to be, and Sam, who's sitting in the audience as well. It's going to be running that session. So there's some really good sort of things about that. I've mentioned the Martin's Law. There's other stuff. But then you suddenly said, sorry, Callie, we're going to talk about you for a second, if that's okay. Then you said, I want to get Callie on to talk about relationships.
And I'm a little bit nervous, I'll be honest. Like,
Callie, you can turn your things off if you want for a second. No, don't.
No. I met Callie at Nicola's event, actually. Is that when we met at the event last year? And Callie is an absolute powerhouse of a woman. And I was like, she started talking a lot about this thing about female friendships. I'm like, that's great. And I saw all the Facebook posts about female friendships. And then one day she just switched and actually talked about female relationships at work. And this is not about an event, a session just for women. It's about how we operate and how we're different. And so I asked Callie if she would come and speak for us. And that's one of those things. I think we're going to hear some perspectives that even last night I was like, I never really thought of it like that. And I think, men in the audience, I would definitely come and listen to that session, because how we operate, and this is a very female-led industry, and the fact is, a lot of the women in the industry are still in the lower level positions. A lot of the high positions are still, had by men. So it's not going to be a whole kind of, about unfairness, or it's about how we operate as women and what do we do about it, and actually the role perhaps, I don't know your content, but I assume, or I guess from knowing Callie, it's like how do we all show up as women and use that power and not sort of shy away from it. And I think that's it. We might get uncomfortable, but let's go there and let's have that conversation. And I think that's I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has to say.
Yeah, me too. Just lastly, before we sort of conclude, and we're going to bring Callie on after a bit of a break. We'll allow you to get some coffee and tea and things like that, and we'll bring Callie on a little bit later on. Some hot coffee. I've got some top tips for getting involved in this. What sort of top tips would you get from an audience coming to our sessions? What sort of things should they be ready to do, listen to, how to react? What do you think a perfect audience is?
I just think come with an absolute open mind. Sit in the uncomfortable. I think that's the key thing. I think a lot of people go, I don't like this, and remove themselves. Sit there, stay, and see how you feel, and make your own conclusion. Because you might not agree with everything. I feel like now we're kind of over-egging it's not going to be a bad day. I've got great content. But just sit with it and see how you feel and talk about it. Go into the hall and have those conversations with each other, and be happy to disagree. or like it's all we're doing is giving a set of opinions. Apart from the Martin's law, that is that is law. So don't disagree with that. It's kind of, but yeah, you've got to. That's coming whether we like it or not. But yeah, I think where I've always done the most learning is where I've come up open mind, sat in it, listened, and just sit with the uncomfortable. Um, yeah, just throw yourselves in.
Well, I have a few tips. I think one of the things that we've tried to move to with CHS is, first of all, is this idea of asking questions versus making points. Just because people are up here doesn't mean that they're better or know more than anyone else out there, right? So the idea is the more knowledge that we get out of the audience and onto the stage, the better, and vice versa. So the idea of asking a question automatically makes that person on stage like the authority of it. So if you've got a question, that's absolutely great. If that person has the authority to answer, that's great. But sometimes just make a point, all right? Because everyone wants to hear what everyone else has got to say. So that would be my sort of first top tip in terms of doing that. And please do. I should remind everyone that it's being filmed, so maybe not too much of a point, or at least not a point that you don't want to stick out there on the internet somewhere. But certainly add to that discussion. The second thing is, one of the things I do think that sort of like we forget often about what a program like this is all about is out there you're going to have discussions about your event, and you're going to have discussions about venues and suppliers and things like that. And they're very linear discussions. Whereas I think a nice way of starting off a conversation is, did you hear what Callie was just talking about female relationships? It just turns the discussion into something different. And I guess we really like that. We like the idea that there's this murmur of backdrop around welfare that could be going on with every discussion that you make. And we hope that you use that in some way to enrich your day about it. And then the third one is take it out. I think this idea, this is a movement, welfare. I've got to say, I do think at the end of 2025, when we look back, I think we will be talking about 2025 as a year that sort of fundamentally changed welfare, not least because it's legally implied now, but also there's so much going on around welfare that I think it will help that. So do take it out. I think the fact that you guys have spent the time to come here and will spend the time listening to these sessions a little bit later on is a sign that you care and you're starting to acknowledge that. So take the time to share it with your peers as well, because we want to start something with this. It's something that we want to carry on with, and we want to do it like that. So that's my top tips for this one. Emma, before I dismiss the class, is there anything you have to say just about CHS in general, or you're happy?
No, I think thank you all for coming and spending the day with us today. The industry is so busy right now. March is an extremely busy month, so I really appreciate that you've taken the time to come here today, and just let's say enjoy it, throw yourself in. We've got some amazing exhibitors, great speakers. Get as much out of the day as you can and enjoy it.
Fantastic. Well, look, one of the best things I think about CHS events is not only do they care about you doing business, they care about you being well hydrated and fed. So by all means, grab a cup of coffee, have lunch later on, which I think is still a wonderful thing. And then the excellent Callie is going to be back on about 10:30. So by all means, go and have a moment out there, do some business, and then come back just before then for headphones and things like that. But thanks so much for being part of this opening session. I do appreciate it. Round of applause for Emma.